Bono, I think my AMG badge is gone. That's what I'm imagining Lewis Hamilton said to the Mercedes livery designer and Bono over the winter for them to slap on so much AMG everywhere. But the new W12 for the Mercedes F1 team has been revealed, and it is interesting. It made me literally have the raised eyebrow emoji face when I looked at it, because I don't know how to feel about it. I really don't. It's gonna need to marinate a little bit in my head, to be honest. Let me know what you guys make of it, because it is a bit different. They retain the main black foundation of their livery from last year. Obviously, this strikingly new livery they had last year in show of solidarity with Lewis Hamilton and also the Black Lives Matter movement, and just for equality in the sport and in general. And they've continued that into this season, but they've also creeped in a bit of silver, as Toto Wolff alluded to on their live stream. In the end of the day, they are the silver arrows. That is their heritage. So a bit of silver is creeping in, mostly at the back where the engine cover is. We'll get to that because that's a very weird part of the livery. But then they've also got some silver streaks going along the side of the car, which I do rate, actually. I like the little silver streak on the top of the turquoise on the side. But then, yeah, the back of the car, very... I don't know how to feel about it, because I'm seeing a lot of different things on Twitter as well here on my other monitor, like some different reactions. Some people absolutely love it, some people are absolutely hating it, and then there's a lot of people like me that we're just not sure. We're not sure yet if we like it or not. And it's not just the silver bleeding onto the engine cover, it's the fact that they've got AMG slapped everywhere. Now, Mercedes and their kind of parent company said they wanted to try and obviously push the AMG brand a bit more. You can clearly see that with all the intro videos they did pushing AMG. You know, it's one thing to want to push it and, you know, have it big on the side of the chassis, but then also slapped everywhere on the engine cover. I'm not too sure. It's a bit odd. It doesn't really work as well. Like the little kind of, you know, the spokes that Mercedes had last year and the last few years, they worked well because it was a bit subtle, you know, it was sort of like elegant, but just big AMG logos, maybe not as elegant for me. It does look a little bit better in person. I will say that the render photos, the material that it renders in 3D is a lot worse than it actually is in real life when it's an actual physical car itself. And you imagine on track, especially with proper sunlight and everything like that, it would look even different. And I think the blending from the black to the silver and the AMG stickering might seem a little bit better. The red of the in US, I think I'm pronouncing that wrong, but the red on the top of the engine cover looks a little bit better than it actually did last year. I think last year was a bit more of a slap-on last minute on the livery, of course, whereas this year it's a bit more integrated into there. But then there's just little features around the car, minimalist design, like the front wing, you've got blocked off turquoise, and also the inside the front wing blocked off red. So it's a bit weird. Mercedes have kind of gone away from being very artsy with their livery to very minimalistic and kind of, you know, straight shapes, which is kind of calm, because obviously that's kind of almost which is kind of calm, obviously, because that's almost, I think, what I think a lot of design lately in the last year or so has been loving, kind of minimalist, kind of, you know, a little bit less craziness and artsy stuff and just a bit more simple. But at the same time, yeah, I mean, I think that's going to be very polarizing, the engine. I'm still not decided on it. But the Mercedes car has launched, W12, what I jokingly tweeted about on Twitter about being the 2021 World Championship car. Because, well, last year, Mercedes did say around the German Grand Prix they'd already stopped development on 2020 to look ahead to 2021. That was about halfway through the season. So I always have maintained, as I said in the Red Bull video, that, you know, Red Bull catch up within the year, but that's only because Mercedes stopped developing their car and they start off strong for the next year, and Red Bull historically been on the back foot. Obviously this year the regulations are frozen and there's some certain tweaks to try and cut the downforce, like the floor, for example, is the biggest area. So maybe out of all the years, maybe this is a year where Red Bull can start quick, but you just know Mercedes might even start even quicker. Now, they said over winter testing that they had some issues maybe with the engine that they're working with, and they wanted to try and find even more performance, and apparently they have found some extra performance, which is going to be a worry to Honda, a worry to Red Bull. I've got it over here. So essentially what they've apparently improved on the PU side, so purely just the engine, not even talking about aero, is better thermal efficiency for the internal combustion engine, changes to the turbocharger to minimize impact on the heat rejection, new alloy for the engine block, adjustments to ERS to make it more resilient, and MGK design change to improve reliability. So that is a lot of changes on the PU to really push out and eke out that last bit, and why wouldn't they? Because, of course, remember, the engines are being frozen then going into the next phase of Formula 1 when we have that massive regulation change, so makes sense to get that equal boost out of the car, out of the PU. So is it going to be ropes? Is it going to be worrying times yet again for Red Bull and for us as F1 fans to maybe see Merc dominate? I mean, last year's car was literally the quickest car we've ever seen in Formula 1 history. That thing was on rails. I remember watching it at Spa, and the way that thing took corners, like there weren't even corners, was ridiculous. And then in terms of the actual bodywork itself, Mercedes, on purpose, they've been very coy, and they're not wanting to reveal where they spent their development tokens. I've literally not seen a single report that's actually nailed down where they may have spent the tokens. So, even the journos are as blind as everyone, basically, of where they've spent those tokens. If you don't know, the teams can spend, I think, two kind of different areas of tokens on the car to actually physically change the car a little bit more, apart from the usual kind of aero bits, because of that regulation freeze. I did see one or two kind of guesses of maybe it looks to be maybe potentially around the side pod area. Would maybe make sense if they did change the engine and, improve the engine to a point where maybe they had to change the layout a little bit. Maybe they've gone for a more suckered in side pod. It's hard to tell, to be honest, from the photos. I did see a few kind of tech journals on Twitter trying to speculate that maybe it looks like they've tightened up that side pod area, even suckered it in even more in terms of the angling. We already saw Mercedes and even Williams last year, and Racing Point actually, when they copied them around the Mugello GP, I think it was, where they got like the entire vacuum seal on the radiator, so you can literally see the radiator poking out of the side pod area. So they potentially have gone even more extreme on that to get even more better airflow. Of course, if they're losing downforce with the cut floor, it makes sense to want to try and get even more airflow and even more advantage from that air flowing down through the edge of the side pods, even more so this year, because they're losing that downforce, that straight downforce from that floor being cut, with all the slots and the squirts kind of slots ahead of the rear wheel. So that's potentially where Mercedes have changed things, because it looks very, very much the same on the front end, the suspension, the kind of chassis bulkhead looks very, very similar, at least to my eyes at least. So maybe that's where they spend the development tokens, but they're being very coy. And to be fair, we've actually found out in the recent days that Red Bull have maybe been very coy. They've not released any photos, or when they have, it's been very zoomed out, of their new car. All the photos they've released so far, Red Bull, have been of the 2019 car with the 2021 livery, which is odd, and a lot of people are speculating that maybe there's more to that car they've not shown at all, and they only might show at pre-season testing. And as I've said before in other videos, more so than ever this year, every single year teams get more and more kind of coy with showing their cars. They do these digital releases, and especially now with COVID, not doing anything in person, they send out these photos, and they can obviously just doctor the photos and change them how they want to try and keep people guessing of what their actual car is. And only when we get to pre-season, when they can't hide it anymore because they have to obviously test out their actual car, maybe that's when we're going to see the proper Red Bull, and maybe that's when we'll see what Mercedes have maybe actually spent their tokens on, and we'll get an inkling also how those improvements to the PU are made. But there were niggles last year with the Mercedes PU, and obviously delaying the season helped them fix that. So it's not an uncommon thing for Merc to have these PU niggles, and if it wasn't for that delay in the last season, maybe Merc would have had more issues last year. So the fact that they've really concentrated on this one means that, one, there maybe really was a kind of thing they needed to iron out with this year's power unit. But then, like I said, because the engine regulations are freezing, I think that's why they've really poured everything into it. I imagine, all these upgrades should trickle down to Mercedes customer teams as well. Maybe there's just going to be a few little toys here and there that Merc keep to themselves, but in general, you would imagine that trickles down to Aston Martin, to McLaren as well, to Williams. So it's going to be interesting to see how those improvements help those customer teams as well in their respective fights. You got McLaren v obviously Renault, or Alpine rather, and the midfield fight against Aston Martin as well, and then Williams obviously trying to make a march and potentially trying to take a bit more of a rugged fight to Haas and Alfa Romeo this year. But Mercedes, the big talk of the launch was obviously Hamilton in that contract, the 1-year contract only. Him saying he's just got to the point of his career where he's achieved everything he set out to achieve. He's just about, taking it as it is. I honestly think that Lewis I think there was a lot of things that him and Merck couldn't hash out completely, so they had to just get a 1-year contract done, and they'll continue those talks about a longer-term project with Mercedes in terms of, obviously, Hamilton is really trying to push for more just equality in the Mercedes team, of actual action in the team, which is great, but those require more stringent talks, so I think they're going to happen over this year, and maybe, obviously, I think Lewis is also just looking at 2022. Does he actually want to drive the car still? Does he like the look of the regulations? I, for one, think he'll sign another 1-year deal, test out for 2022, and then if he doesn't, if he doesn't fancy it, he'll just walk away, and, at that point, he might have, the 8th title this year, he might have the 9th one in 2022, you don't know, but I think Lewis is just playing it smart for him. He's being a bit more selfish in terms of, I don't need to get a long-term contract. I've done so much in my career, I can just take it as it goes, and he's that kind of guy that he's got so much going for him outside of the sport in terms of his own personal interests that, he can just call it quits and still have a happy life after F1, I think. So it's, but that was a major talking point of the Merc reveal. But yeah, circling back to the beginning, to the livery, I mean, you can tell by my face, I'm just very, I just don't know. I really don't know. I don't love it. I don't love it, but I don't hate it either. It's decent enough from other angles, but as soon as you get to that side angle with that engine cover, I'm just not sure they could. I just feel like if they wanted to put AMG badges everywhere, that's calm, but they could have done it a little bit better. I feel like the badges are too big, and also at the very bottom of it, they feel like they're too close together. It's just very, very odd, and I feel like Merc, they went from... it's just weird. Merc have definitely had a few little weird, confusing bits with their design points with their liveries in the last few years where, maybe not the whole livery's, bad, but as in, like, there's little bits. Like, even last year's car, before they went to the black, with the silver car, the red, the way they slapped it on was very kind of just like, oh, they just put it on. Obviously, it got better when the entire car became black, but, I don't know. Let me know what you guys make of it. As I said, there was a very mixed reaction on Twitter, so it'll be interesting to see and gauge what you guys are making of it. And do you agree with it? Do you reckon this is going to be the 2021 World Championship car? I feel like we should all stop kidding ourselves and just accept that I think it's inevitable and that we're all really just waiting for next year in terms of big change. But that doesn't mean the racing's not going to be exciting. Last year was one of the most exciting seasons we've had in a while for the V6 era, I think, and Mercedes still dominated that one. So I think there's still some fun times ahead, and like I said, maybe Red Bull can finally start a season running and actually have a go at this team. But that has been the W12 reveal. A bit like Marmite, I think, this car, potentially. I think I'm going to round it up with saying, but if you guys did enjoy the video, hit the like button. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. If you're new around here, then do subscribe for weekly Formula 1 content. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.